Have you ever met that one person at a family gathering who talks non-stop, acting as if they know everything? They speak with so much confidence, yet when you actually fact-check them, most of what they say turns out to be completely wrong. It's almost comical, isn't it? The funniest part is that they say it all with so much certainty, and their non-stop talking makes it obvious that they're not as intelligent as they believe. As Plato once said, wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. It's fascinating to think about, isn't it? On the other hand, there are genuinely smart people, the ones who know a lot but seem quiet, hesitant, and full of doubt. They hold back because they're aware of just how much they don't know. They don't want to speak unless they're completely sure, which ironically makes them appear less confident than the people who are spouting nonsense. But why is that? Why do people with little knowledge think they're geniuses, while those who are truly intelligent tend to doubt themselves? This strange effect was studied by psychologists David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger, and it's now known as the Dunning-Kruger Effect. A perfect example of this happened in 1995, when a man named MacArthur Wheeler tried to rob two banks in Pittsburgh. He believed that rubbing lemon juice on his face would make him invisible to security cameras. He even tested his theory by taking a Polaroid of himself after applying the juice, but due to a likely error in his photography, he didn't show up in the image. That was all the proof he needed. Convinced he was right, he didn't question it any further. As Alexander Pope said, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some people act like they're experts when they really don't know much at all? Or why the smartest people tend to second-guess themselves? Well, this phenomenon is exactly what Dunning and Kruger studied, and their findings are eye-opening. So, why do people with limited knowledge believe they're smarter than they are, while those with real expertise tend to doubt themselves? In 1999, Dunning and Kruger conducted an experiment where participants were asked to perform various tasks and rate their own performance. The results were surprising. The people who performed the worst were the most overconfident, rating themselves far higher than their actual abilities. On the other hand, the most skilled participants slightly underestimated themselves. The Dunning-Kruger effect explains that when people don't know enough about a subject, they lack the self-awareness to recognize their own mistakes or weaknesses. Without the proper knowledge to assess their performance accurately, they end up overestimating their abilities. Meanwhile, the more knowledgeable individuals are more aware of the gaps in their understanding, leading them to be more self-critical. Now, let's dive deeper into why this phenomenon happens. The Dunning-Kruger effect stems from a lack of metacognition, our ability to evaluate our own thinking and knowledge. Simply put, when people lack deep understanding in a subject, they are less able to judge their own competence. This inability to accurately assess their own performance is one of the key reasons why they overestimate their abilities. Think about it this way. When you don't know enough about something, you're more likely to assume that you fully understand it. This is what happens when someone reads a little bit about a topic and believes they've mastered it. A classic example of this is someone who might skim through a few articles on a complex subject, like economics or psychology, and then claim they understand everything about it. They haven't delved deeply enough to recognize the nuances, and as a result, they misjudge their own level of expertise. This is why people who think they've done their research often arrive at incorrect conclusions. Without a thorough understanding of the subject, they can't see the gaps in their knowledge. This lack of awareness is the core reason why they tend to overestimate their abilities, creating a false sense of confidence. Let me give you a real-world example. You've probably encountered someone who attends a few beginner-level classes or reads a couple of books about a certain topic, and then suddenly believes they know more than the experts. They might even start offering advice to others who are more knowledgeable. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action, thinking that a little knowledge is enough to become an authority. In fact, it's often the case that the more we learn about a subject, the more we realize how little we truly know. The people who are most knowledgeable about a topic are usually the ones who are aware of just how vast the field is. This is where humility comes in. Highly skilled or knowledgeable individuals tend to have a more accurate sense of their own limitations, while those with little knowledge tend to overestimate their expertise. Take the example of someone who is skilled at playing the piano. The more they practice, the more they realize there's so much more to learn. On the other hand, someone who has just started playing might feel that they already know everything there is to know, even though their understanding of the instrument is very limited. This is a classic example of how limited knowledge can lead to an inflated sense of ability. This lack of self-awareness is not just about ignorance, though. It's also about the confidence gap. As I mentioned earlier, people with little knowledge tend to be more confident about their abilities than they should be. This happens because their lack of expertise makes them less likely to notice mistakes or realize the complexity of a topic, because they don't yet have the framework to critically evaluate themselves. They falsely believe they are at the same level as those who have put in years of study and practice. So, how does this play out in real life? Think about the countless times you've heard someone assert their opinions on a topic they know little about, whether it's politics, science, or even pop culture. They speak with certainty, as if they've done thorough research, when in reality, they've only scratched the surface. Their overconfidence often makes them hard to debate because they're convinced they're right, even when the facts don't support them. The opposite happens with experts. Because they understand how much they still don't know, they tend to be more cautious with their statements. They hesitate to speak with absolute certainty, even when they are more knowledgeable than others. This is what gives the impression that experts are less confident than the less knowledgeable people around them who speak with such certainty. In a way, this phenomenon mirrors the famous saying by the philosopher Socrates, "I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing." Experts often have this understanding of their limitations. They understand the complexity of the world and their own knowledge, which leads them to speak less confidently. The more they learn, the more they recognize how much there still is to learn. To summarize, the Dunning-Kruger Effect shows us that the less someone knows, the more confident they are about their knowledge. This is due to their inability to recognize their own limitations and the complexity of the subject. Conversely, those with greater expertise tend to be more self-critical and hesitant, aware of the vastness of what they still don't know. Before we wrap things up, let's talk about an important element that can enhance your learning and help you avoid falling into the Dunning-Kruger effect: keeping your knowledge growing and always challenging yourself. If you truly want to avoid overestimating your abilities, you need to remain open to continuous learning and avoid getting too comfortable with the limited knowledge you might have. Now, this principle isn't just about personal growth, it's also about building a deeper connection with the material. Often, when we start to feel confident about a topic, we make the mistake of thinking we've mastered it. But the reality is, there's always more to learn. This is why you must be proactive in seeking out new resources, whether it's through books, podcasts, or even videos that explore different aspects of the subject. But let's go a step further. One of the most powerful ways to ensure that you're not only learning, but retaining what you've learned is through revisiting the material. This doesn't mean mindlessly going over the same thing again, but rather looking at it from a different perspective or challenging your understanding of it. When you engage with the content more than once, your brain makes new connections and reinforces your understanding, which in turn prevents you from developing that false sense of expertise that often comes with the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, think about this. If you're watching a video or reading a book and you come across something that excites you, what do you do next? Most people tend to move on to something else, but the most successful learners always look for ways to keep exploring and growing. They don't stop at surface-level understanding. They go deeper and dive into related topics. This is where the concept of the relink hack comes in. It's all about staying within the ecosystem of learning and reinforcing the knowledge you've gained. Whether it's through another related video or article, or even revisiting something you didn't quite understand the first time, connecting ideas and revisiting them helps you deepen your understanding and avoid overconfidence. By linking one video to another, or one book to another, you can create a learning journey that continuously challenges you to question what you think you know. This process is key to self-improvement, as it keeps you curious and engaged. Every new video you watch or article you read becomes another piece of the puzzle, giving you more insight and preventing the overconfidence that comes from limited knowledge. Now that we understand why the Dunning-Kruger effect happens, let's talk about how we can overcome it. The first step is to embrace humility. Benjamin Franklin once said, "The doorstep to the temple of wisdom is a knowledge of our own ignorance." This is crucial. The more we know, the more we come to realize how much there still is to learn. Humility isn't just a virtue, it's a tool that allows us to stay open to new information and perspectives, even when we feel like we already know a lot. By recognizing that we don't know everything, we open ourselves up to continuous learning and growth. Many people fall into the Dunning-Kruger Effect trap because they refuse to acknowledge their limitations. They often cling to their limited knowledge and act as though it represents the full extent of the truth. This behavior stems from insecurity and fear of looking foolish, but ironically, it only holds them back from real progress. The key to overcoming this is accepting that you don't have to know everything to be valuable or intelligent. Admitting that you have gaps in your knowledge doesn't make you weak. It shows maturity and an openness to improving. One powerful way to combat the Dunning-Kruger effect is by actively seeking feedback and learning from others. When we become too confident in our own understanding, we stop seeking out diverse viewpoints and constructive criticism. By engaging with others, especially those who are more knowledgeable or experienced, we not only fill in the gaps in our own understanding, but we also begin to see the world through a broader lens. Real growth occurs when we challenge our assumptions and are willing to listen to those who might offer new insights or correct our misconceptions. Another key element in overcoming this bias is developing metacognition, the ability to evaluate our own thinking. Metacognition allows us to reflect on our thought processes and critically assess our level of understanding. The more we practice metacognition, the better we become at identifying when we are overestimating our knowledge and when we need to dig deeper. This self-awareness is critical for managing the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more we recognize our own limitations, the more we understand the value of continuous learning. It's also important to acknowledge that overcoming the Dunning-Kruger effect isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process. We must stay humble and remain open to learning, even when we feel like we've reached a certain level of expertise. The journey of acquiring knowledge is never truly complete. There's always more to discover, and there's always room for improvement. The most successful people in any field are those who continue to learn throughout their lives. They never stop seeking new information, they never stop questioning, and they always strive to get better. By maintaining a growth mindset, we can avoid the dangers of overconfidence. Instead of assuming we know everything, we can embrace uncertainty as an opportunity to explore, expand our understanding, and become better at whatever we do. This shift in mindset is essential not just for personal growth, but also for professional success. It allows us to develop resilience, adaptability, and a deeper level of expertise that comes from constantly pushing our limits. Finally, it's important to practice patience with yourself. Learning and growth take time, and it's okay to not have all the answers right away. Instead of rushing to conclusions, allow yourself the space to absorb new information and take the time to reflect on it. With patience, humility, and a commitment to lifelong learning, we can steadily overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect and unlock our true potential.